Good morning, everyone, or afternoon or evening, depending on where you might be. Today, my presentation is the Tao of Relationships, Part 2. Last week, in Part 1, we talked about criticism a little bit. And that sort of is, criticism, like I said last week, is the hindrance to relationships in a lot of ways. Today, we get to talk about some more positive aspects of relationships. So I'm going to start with chapter 55 of the Tao Te Ching. Knowing harmony is said to be constancy. Knowing constancy is said to be clarity. So harmony with others is closely tied to purpose. We all want to know why we're here. We want to know our purpose, our destiny. We want to know why we ended up in this universe, out of all the possible universes. Possibly in an infinite amount of universes if you look at the current cosmology. And even within this observable universe, why do we find ourselves on this little planet, in this galaxy, one of billions, this little corner? And intuitively, I think we're here for each other, and that we can create unity of purpose together. That is why having harmony in relationships is so important. I know it's certainly important in my life. It makes life worth living. Notice that in nature, opposites attract. A good example of this is the electromagnetic force. I remember when I was a kindergartner, first time I ever got my hands on magnets, I was fascinated with them. I would sit at the table and I would play with these magnets. And when you had the two negative ends or the two positive ends, you could feel the force, not wanting to come together. You could actually feel it. And conversely, when you had a positive and a negative end, it would attract, and you could feel the strength of the pull. And I remember being fascinated by that, just that invisible force that's there. And even to this day, when I think of the electromagnetic force, I think of the Tao. That because it's that invisible force that draws things. And in human relationships, you'll notice that opposites often attract as well. And the good thing about opposites attracting is that it tends to create balance. I notice this in almost all my relationships, but professionally, personally, my friendships. It's funny how the traits of people that are very different from my own traits, and yet we become such good friends because there's a balance that naturally comes. So the strengths of the people you are naturally drawn to will balance out your weaknesses. And the flip side is generally true as well. Conversely, your strengths will balance out their weaknesses. That is why collaborating with others is a great way to achieve harmony. Collaboration can take many forms, and it helps us to create something larger than ourselves, a purpose larger than ourselves. Raising children with a significant other is an example of a personal collaboration for a greater good, right? To raise the next generation. I'm sure many of us have experienced that. And professional collaborations in business or at work are another example. So, we spend 40 hours at work, and inevitably you're going to meet people that you align with and that you have great relationships with, and that's a good thing. The biggest danger to our collaboration with others is our ego. That's the thing we have to be careful of. Collaborating is about working with others to create a greater good, and if you start seeing it as your sole success that you author, you're the sole author of. If we attribute our success only to ourselves, the constancy of harmony that we all want, it'll evaporate, and it'll evaporate rather quickly. So like with everything with the Tao, the ego really is the thing that we have to be very careful of. So when I was preparing this presentation earlier this week, I kind of had an idea what I was going to talk about to sort of illustrate this collaboration and harmony. But even as I was doing it, I was thinking, I wish I had a better example of this. But I forged on, and I go, well, okay, I got an idea what I'm going to talk about here. So I went on, and then yesterday I was getting all these coincidences that were coming to me saying, you know what, I need to talk about something else. But I had no idea what I was going to talk about, other than what I had previously thought of. And so I said to myself, I'm just going to go on with my day here, and it'll come to me or it won't come to me. If it doesn't come to me, I've got my plan B ready to go, and I'll wait for plan A to show up. And it's funny how these things work. So I went on, living my day. I did all the things I planned to do, wash the cars and all that. And that afternoon, we had planned for a couple of weeks now to go to this Down syndrome event. It was at 1 o'clock, and we went, and it was just a wonderful time. It was put on by an organization called the Down Syndrome Families Resource Center. It was just a wonderful day. There was face painting for Ellie. Ellie's cousins were there as well, so they enjoyed that. They're also very young, a couple of her cousins. Christopher got to play with other children with Down syndrome, and Ellie played with them too. It was wonderful. There was lots of families there. We met someone who had a 5-week-old with Down syndrome. And that was just wonderful because it brought back all the memories of cute babies. And, Christopher's 16 months old now, but it goes by so quick. And it was wonderful seeing a baby. But as I was there, just by chance, I met one of the founders of this organization who had put this little meet and greet on. And he spoke to me, we talked, he shared a story with me. And as I was talking to him, or shortly after talking to him, I realized, oh my goodness, this is the example of collaboration and harmony that fits, the points I want to make here. And so this gentleman, we were talking, and he said, hey, thanks for coming. I said, oh, thanks for putting it on. I really enjoy it. And he goes, yeah, we just started a year ago, which I knew. Their first event was a few months ago. They had a dance for teenagers and young adults with Down syndrome. And, mentioned that, hey, did you fill out the questionnaire? And I said, oh, yeah, Wendy filled it out, giving the ideas of what kind of things we need help with. And he said, yeah, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we do what's needed. And so we're gathering information so we can put on the right kinds of things and help the right kinds of people. And I thought that was so wonderful. And then he shared with me his personal story. When he had his daughter, he was 29. It was his first child. She's now 19. And he, like me, and he and his wife, they joined organizations like the one he is now a co-founder of. And he worked with another organization that we're familiar with, that we became familiar with last Christmas, called Up for Down. And he worked there for 10 years, helping, volunteering, being a part of it. And the remarkable thing about what he told me was that when his daughter was 8, he made the decision that he was going to adopt another child with Down syndrome. And I was in awe. And of course, he told me, he had planned to, he was going to have to go to Russia to do it because he wanted an infant, and there was just a huge shortage of infants with Down syndrome in the United States up for adoption. And of course, a lot of that is because, sadly, when people get a preliminary test that the child is going to have Down syndrome, they choose to abort it. And a lot of that is medical personnel tend to paint a dismal picture of the condition. The rate of abortion for children who are discovered to possibly have Down syndrome is something like in the high 80s percentage in the United States. In Australia, it's even higher. It's like the low 90s. And of course, it's for me and for people like the gentleman I met yesterday, once you're on the other side of it and you see the joy that comes from it, it's sort of hard to hear that. But I love what he did was that he decided he would adopt an infant. And he was going to go to Russia to do it, and apparently the way the system works over there is you have to go a couple of times, and it's costly. There's some cash that has to change hands and so forth. And so he was all set to go, I think for the second time, to go adopt a baby. And he gets a call from someone local, and they said, hey, there's a baby up for adoption with Down syndrome. Are you interested? And he said, yeah, of course I'm interested. And so he has 2 daughters. his 19-year-old, and his they're 8 years apart, so he has an 11-year-old as well. And he found this sort of commonality, and he now founds this organization which has many people in it, and he's out there trying to help, and together with other people he's created this organization that's just a wonderful organization of fellowship and support and information. It's something far larger than any one individual. I think of all the people that were there that made the event yesterday so great. And it's an example of how collaboration and harmony create something larger than yourself. And his story was so touching to me. The fact that he selflessly gave to help other people. I was really touched by it. And I knew that that's what I meant. That's the thing. That's why I got all the coincidences. That's the thing I needed to talk about today, at least for this part. I want to sort of punctuate this with a quote from David Hume that sort of exemplifies a sense of urgency about creating harmony, because we have to do it now. The time for us to reach our destiny is in this moment while we're alive. This is the time we have to work on it. So here's the quote. "Your corn is ripe today. Mine will be so tomorrow. It is profitable for us both that I should labor with you today, and that you should aid me tomorrow. I have no kindness for you, and know you have as little for me. I will not therefore take any pains upon your account, and should I labor with you upon my own account, in expectation of a return, I know I should be disappointed, and that I should in vain depend upon your gratitude. Here then I leave you to labor alone. You treat me in the same manner. The seasons change, and both of us lose our harvests for want of mutual confidence and security." To me, this quote talks about life without healthy, harmonious relationships are tough, and it's better to build harmony, and build our common destiny together. And that's why I thought I would put this quote in here. So I'm going to move on now to talk about a different aspect of relationships. And I want to start with this chapter 49 of the Tao Te Ching. "Those who are good, I am good to them. Those who are not good, I am also good to them. Thus, the virtue of goodness." So conflict in relationships will inevitably rise. It just happens sometimes. And there are people in the world who don't value harmony. We don't choose all our relationships. Some of them are of necessity. And sometimes you'll encounter people who just don't value harmony, largely because they don't know about harmony. I think if people knew about it, we'd see more of it. but of course, many of us do know about it, and that's what makes life worth living. But harmonious relationships with such people can seem impossible, but there is always a better way. I've spent many years of my professional career working with the public, and it was great training for me, because sometimes, not that people that you encounter are just disharmonious all the time, but some people in certain situations can be very out of balance and blow things out of proportion and get very upset. And my years of dealing with that have taught me a few things. When harmony does not flow naturally, to cultivate correctly, we have to create the harmony we want. The Tao is not about hoping that harmonious encounters with others will just appear out of thin air. They don't. They take work and effort. Instead, we have to create it, and in doing so, we share it with those who need it most. Acts of kindness toward difficult people can go a long way in creating harmony with them. I think it's because it's so unexpected that it can really have an impact. For years of dealing with the public, I know if you pick up a phone and you've got someone enraged on the other line, what I've learned is just to submit early, knock their socks off with kindness, and it tends to really turn things around, which ultimately is better for the whole organization. Difficult people lead hard lives because most people will go out of their way not to help them. That's usually the reaction. You deal with someone difficult, you're like, yeah, I'm not gonna walk across the street for you. But of course, It's much easier to be kind to the people we love and like, but the Tao, of course, is a call to more than just that. It's a call to something higher. So steps to take when conflict arises in a relationship. Keep an open mind about a possible solution. Know that there always is a better way. We are all connected, so in a sense, striking back at a difficult person is a self-inflicted blow. Maybe not right away, but indirectly it can be. Another person's loss is our loss too. Ultimately, we cannot win unless we all win together. I truly believe that. Not only personally, but socially, and within our own human civilizations, I think that's very true. It's the key thing. One of the key things to do is avoid us versus them feelings and seek the common ground that emotion often obscures. Usually, when you have conflicts with someone, you see your point of view as I'm the good one, they're the bad one. We tend to break things out into black and white ways that way when emotions involve, but it's kind of good to put that down. Avoid those types of feelings. Try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Try to find out why they're feeling this way. Try to understand. And remember that difficult people are in the most need of our kindness. And once the proper response becomes clear to you, and if you practice this often enough, it does eventually become clear, then you have to do the important part. You have to take action and exercise that peaceful solution that's come to you. Approaching conflict in this manner will help us to create positive results. Those outcomes sometimes may seem magical, but in reality, it is just the way the Tao works and has always worked. When we align ourselves with the Tao, we will be able to enjoy healthy relationships that promote happiness for all. This really is true. The Tao has a way of making things happen that we think are impossible, but I've seen it happen. It's amazing. And I want to throw in a quote from Twain here, Mark Twain. Kindness is the language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. It's so true. And of course, speaking figuratively here of being deaf and blind, and there's a lot of people who have this sort of figurative deafness and blindness. And kindness, I think, is the best solution. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is compassion in relationships. So I'm going to start with chapter 8 of the Tao Te Ching. The highest goodness resembles water. Water greatly benefits myriad things without contention. It stays in places that people dislike. Therefore, it is similar to the Tao. So the compassionate Tao sage exists in each of us, and it's waiting to be awakened. We all have a Buddha nature that's waiting to get out. And it's not a question of if. The hope of this part of the presentation is that we're all going to be enlightened enough to live that life of compassion. It's not if, it's when. How many lifetimes will it take? I don't know, but it's going to happen. That I feel sure about. Our enlightenment is a given, but we have to have a sense of urgency about getting there. This is this present moment. This is the moment we have to work on this. We have to work on it. This is the time. We're here for a reason. I think like I said, I think we're here for each other. But this is the time we have to do it. We can't procrastinate this work. Even if it takes lifetimes, whatever. The point is, this lifetime is a step towards getting there. So we have to have a sense of urgency about it. Compassion cannot be contrived. It has to be genuine, and without any involvement of the ego. If you've noticed, there's people, and I've done this myself. I think we've probably all done this. We do something good and compassionate, and a lot of times you feel this urge to I just want to tell them what I did. And of course, that's the ego. And I think one of the things, one of the quotes from Jesus that I love is, he says something like, if you do a good deed and you want to boast about it, you've already been repaid. But do it in secret, so that only my Father knows about it. To me, I would say, do it in secret, and so that only you and the Tao know about it. I think there's a lot of wisdom there in that same sentiment that's expressed in Christianity. We are all connected by the suffering that comes from living an unawakened life. I think this is very true. And there's a quote from the Greek poet Aeschylus that I want to throw in here because I think it really sort of punctuates this point. He who learns must suffer, and even in our sleep, pain that cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, and in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom to us by the awful grace of God. Um, Living compassionately involves understanding the suffering of others and recognizing opportunities to help. We're all connected through suffering. We all know what that is. We've all experienced the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to, as Shakespeare put it. We know what it is to suffer. And in some ways, that's our starting point of connection with each other. Tao sages have the knowledge that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have. And because of that, they don't get angry or discouraged or exact harsh judgment about the shortcomings of others. Instead, they see with their spiritual eyes, and thus they can see how to help others in a seamless, unattached way. So seamless, in fact, that their actions are so subtle and natural that only those with a very high understanding of the Tao will even see it. And I just want to end this presentation with a quote from, I'm sorry, I have a summary here. Okay, so let me jump to the summary here. So the Tao approach to managing relationships successfully. Okay, so 1, collaborating with others allows us to balance strengths and weaknesses, thus achieving harmony. That harmony will lead to the creation of something larger than the sum of the parts involved. Like the gentleman I met with yesterday. It's not just him and all those other people who work to co-found that organization and work with it, and the people who are involved and come to it. It's not any one of those single parts, but the sum of all of them that made yesterday so wonderful, such a wonderful day. I'm sure there'll be many more wonderful days to come because of that harmony and collaboration. We have to be careful not to let the ego destroy the harmony that is created by working with others. As with everything with the Tao, it seems like the ego is the thing that can really get in the way. And that's really the fight. I think we have to fight ourselves. It's similar to, the Christian idea of killing the flesh. We have to kill this egotistical side of ourselves. Relationships with difficult people are a reality of living, and they can seem unsurmountable. Avoid seeing the other person as evil and ourselves as good and righteous. Using kindness is the best way to deal with conflict that arises in our relationships. Kindness and understanding. Understand why the person is that way, and then give them some kindness to help. The compassionate life we are all destined to live is something we have to start working on now. It's important that we do that. This is the only time we have to work on it, so we should do it. Utilize the suffering that we all have in common to motivate your compassionate actions towards others. It's an understanding others' suffering that we can want to help, and then hopefully be able to help. Okay, so as I was about to say before I forgot about the summary, I want to end everything today in the presentation with a quote from Joseph Campbell, because I think it sort of sums up everything about relationships that I wanted to say. I'm sorry, one last point there. Frequent practice will make it second nature, and eventually we will become awakened beings. That's the hope. We will get there sooner or later. So here's the quote. Every act in life yields pairs of opposites in its results. The best we can do is lean toward the light, toward the harmonious relationships that come from compassion with suffering, from understanding the other person. Okay, so there it was, the Tao of Relationships, part 2, the final part, actually. Thank you all for listening to me today. I hope I said something that was of use, and I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday.
Alex, thank you. What a wonderful presentation. I have a remark here that I hope you can comment on. This is from says, I wonder if Alex might speak to Deming Dao's belief that Taoists are not pacifists, so that poisonous people should be avoided and considered a resource, in that we should learn not to be as they are.
Yes, I agree. I tried to make that point last time with criticism, but you're right. It can appear. Oddly enough, those people, and I think they're the minority, to be honest. But I know what you're saying. There are people that way, and I think in general, when you recognize something like that, yeah, it is okay to avoid them as much as you can. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes those people are going to be in your life. And the best thing to do, I think, is just show them kindness. Recognize that they're in most need of it. But yes, you're right. They are an absolute example of how not to be, what to avoid. They are a resource in that sense. They're providing something good by displaying what to avoid. So I agree with that. But I also think they're most in need of kindness.
I would say that, I myself have learned so much from the resources in my own life. The people with who are so caught up in their own darkness and negativity that they begin to affect other people around them. So I would advise everyone that you want to be careful of the possibility of becoming codependent with anyone. The Tao does not require that you become a doormat for others to step on. You have every right to take the appropriate action to put some distance between yourself and the negative influences in your life. Alex, other feedback for you? Excellent points again, Alex. I really appreciate your contributions and viewpoints to the webinar. From Robert, sometimes those who follow the Tao experience the coming together of things that provide benefits. And Robert is speaking to Alex, to your statement where you said the Tao has a way of making things happen. I find that to be so true. And that's why sometimes I say the Tao provides. If you follow the right path, things just happen. Things happen to your benefit. Things happen automatically. Things happen beyond your expectations. And conversely, that's how you know that you are on the right path.
Yeah, I so agree with you. In fact, one other thing I wanted to say, I spent a large part of my life being a resource for others of how not to be. and it's really not till I got these teachings that I began to change. And of course, I'm a work in progress.
And also, Alex, we have a request for you to show your excellent summary slides again.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Let me just go back. There we go. That has all of the points in it.
We all benefit from seeing it a little bit longer, Alex, because you pack a lot into every slide. It's really amazing. What I really kind of enjoy, of your presentation and Bill's presentation also is that everyone has a different and unique style, and it shows through in the design choices, in the layouts, in the content that you put into a slide. So I'm really appreciating your own very unique style, and I think that your exuberance and personality really shine through.
Thank you, Derek.
So a couple more feedback for you from Bob. Excellent guidance, Alex. I need these reminders every day at my job. Thank you. Ain't that the truth? The workplace is oftentimes where the most challenges are.
Yeah, I so agree. I think part of it is because we don't choose those relationships generally. We need a job, or we need, if it's a business, we need our source of living. So, but you inevitably have to collaborate with people, all types of people. So yeah, I know what you mean. It's tough. I spent years dealing with very difficult people, and you learn, so that's good.
And finally, we have one more note of agreement from Carolyn. So useful for the workplace. Thank you.